Meat Lantern, I don't know what to do. Everyone on the internet only says negative things about Mario Kart Tour, and I don't know what to do about it. Nowhere, anywhere I look, does anyone even say the most mediocre, just somewhat nice thing about Mario Kart Tour. I don't know what to do about that. You know what, Meat Lantern, you're right. At least if anything, we can at least very confidently say that Ninja Hideaway is a standout example of one thing, the one thing that everyone universally agrees is good about Mario Kart Tour. And nothing will ever change that, of being the one thing that seems to universally get the praise that it deserves. And what the fuck is that? That's right. So, my man Sir Musty has come out with a slander piece of one of the best Mario Kart tracks in the series ever. And he's come out to completely throw my boy under the bus. And I am incredibly hurt, Sir Musty. How could you do this to me? Well, today, Sir Musty, you get to be the reactee. You're the one who gets to have the reaction video made in reference to you. And I get to be the man making the content slop. Making reaction content to you. So how do you like that, Sir Musty? And unlike you, I speak for myself, and I don't have to rely on a soundboard to be my wingman and back up all of my points. Because I am a person with experience, and I know what I'm talking about. Just for no reason, just completely just slander him like he's just like he's insulted my entire bloodline. I mean, Ninja Hideaway's he might as well be. Ninja Hideaway is so high on my list. It is like a top 5 track for me, and I'm curious to see what he can do to possibly talk this track down. The most I can really expect out of this list is that he's probably going to comment the fact that instead of ninjas, we're stuck with shy guys, which, yes, I agree. He's going to talk about 2 things with the upper route. The first being that but if you don't time it correctly, then the little ceiling spikes aren't going to line you up to take the true top route, and I'm just going to be sitting here like, so that's something else to learn about the track. That's a fundamental skill of knowing the track. And the other thing I can see him bringing up is the fact that sometimes tricking off of the ramps on the top route, if you're using motion trick, can just cause you to fall down anyway. Maybe he'll complain about the fact that if you trick off the final ramp, you don't have time to drift, completely ignoring the fact that not every single ramp means that you have to trick, and that some of them are better to drift off. Those are my predictions. Let's see how Sir Musty decides to massacre my boy.
Ninja Hideaway. At the time of its Wave 1 release, it was definitely the most interesting track of the lot. If you hadn't played Tour like me, you were seeing a whole new track for the first time. So now that everyone's kind of gotten used to it, it's been really making the rounds. So much so that some people are touting it to be the next Waluigi Pinball, in that it's going to be the track that everyone loves now.
Oh, the next mid? The next mid? No, Waluigi Pinball. It's a novel concept. Waluigi Pinball was never an extraordinary track in terms of design. I'm sorry to tell you, Musty. It's just a bit of a snaky track where there's no shortcuts, and the pinballs are very easy to avoid. It's a cool thematic track, but there's not nearly enough track design going into it. But we're not here for Waluigi Pinballs. Why don't we take a step back? Why do you think this won't be the next Waluigi Pinball?
But then later down the line, it's going to be hit with the overrated allegations. But I'm getting there early. I'm hitting them with the overrated allegations right now. The likes of Albert Boris, Shafrillas Productions, and plenty of tier lists in my Discord all regard this track as top 3, if not top 5, if not top 10. And I hear I'm merely putting it in the top 40. What is it exactly that doesn't make me think this track is great, but merely good? Let me explain what I mean when I call Ninja Hideaway overrated. A lot of people use overrated as a shorthand to mean bad, but I'm using it in the more traditional sense, which is, I think it's about this good, and everyone's rating it about this good, you know? So there's a bit of a discrepancy in ratings here, and I think this habit in gaming discourse as a whole of using it as a shorthand to mean bad really pollutes any sort of good faith conversation you can have. It's the same thing with the phrase skill issue, for example. Is it a valid accusation to make in some instances? Obviously. Whenever you do say critique any track and somebody merely throws overrated or skill issue, now you're arguing about what the hell do you mean about that phrase, as opposed to arguing about design concepts and track design and just vibes and even anything that could be more remotely interesting than just arguing definition.
All right, I feel a little called out by this. a little bit called out by this criteria, because for the most part, I try to use objective criteria in rating my things. For me, rating based off of vibes isn't enough. A track has to be designed fundamentally well, and if someone has a problem with how a track races, and they're clearly not racing it correctly, I would still consider that a skill issue. I feel like most of the time when I see people complaining about Ninja Hideaway or something along those lines, it is because they don't know how to race it well, and they don't know how to really use all of the advanced techniques that there is to offer here to their fullest, because there is so much to learn about Ninja Hideaway, and none of it's like inaccessible, unlike some of the other tech in Mario Kart 8, and I think that all of this is the kind of thing that works to Ninja Hideaway's benefit. And so, forgive me if I do fall back on the skill issue response, Sir Musty, but that is kind of the main criteria of the way I rate tracks. Like, I'm no longer here for the visuals. I'm far past that. When you have 900 hours in the game, you stop caring about the vibes nearly as much. But even outside of that, if we, all of that said and behind us, of like the 1 out of 10 points I attribute to style, Ninja Hideaway blows it out of the park, with the one singular thing it messes up being the lack of ninjas. But otherwise, I think Ninja Hideaway is the most visually creative Mario Kart track we have had since fucking Coconut Mall. Like, I don't think there's a single track in Mario Kart history that I have been like, this is an extremely creative idea and is explored to its fullest. There's nothing that quite hits that mark like Ninja Hideaway does. And to blow it out of the water even further, that fucking music, brother. I can play you a clip from your own video where you are vibing to it in a way that I would even call embarrassing if I was to do that myself.
Welcome to Ninja Hideaway.
And more power to you. I appreciate that you get into it this much, but even you have to consider that you yourself feel very strongly about it. But alright, let's continue. After you've called out my criteria of overrated, sir.
I was overrated, that's exactly what I mean. I think the fan opinion is like all the way up here, whereas mine is like down here somewhere, you know. Right when you even boot up the track, the aesthetics and the theming are just something else. Classic recognizable Japanese architecture. On the opening stretch of the road, you drive through some cherry blossoms. And immediately from the first turn inwards, you notice the gimmick at hand. They let you know right off the rip that, hey, picking your lane, picking your path, making your choice is something that this track is going to have plenty of. I actually think this opening path choice section is really good. If you take the top path, you don't have to contend with a Ninja Star spike set piece. But if you take the bottom path, you have to. But if you have a mushroom, you can also take a secret hidden shortcut over here.
Not even just a mushroom.
Accessible to you if you take the top path. And also if you take the top path,
I don't think you're going to go into this more, but I also want to point out that doesn't just require a mushroom. You can do that with the shell, and this is particularly interesting because it's a shortcut for first place where you are sacrificing your only protection to give yourself that slight bit of speed edge, which is not really a dynamic any other track in the game has. Just throwing that out there. Just a bit of genius track design that I don't expect you to cover here.
Risk the brunt of bumping into the wall as the spikes are coming down. Bottom path being riskier but potentially better, and the top path being safer but potentially slower, I think is a really cool way to get us started. And then you see the ninja.
And with something else you didn't even mention, top route has more coins. So if you're building top speed, that's the way to go.
Shy guys themselves, and don't get me wrong, while they look cute and they are very nice, and I like me some shy guys, I just don't think they're all that. Am I allowed to say that? Am I allowed to say?
No, I agree.
Like,
no, you're right.
Cool yeah, but hazard-wise, it actually is not that interesting. For example, if they disappeared and placed a banana in a random area along that same row, that could be quite interesting. A hazard would be dynamic. You have to keep an eye out for where the ninjas drop their bananas. But since you know they're always going to drop a banana exactly where they left them, you simply avoid their path all the time.
Okay, I can see your point here. I can kind of see your point here. I don't have a problem with this in the same reason I don't have a problem with the cars not moving on Coconut Mall. And that is because of the fact that, to some degree, being able to have this down to a muscle memory is a thing that I think Mario Kart 8, I think, tends to be that way, where even though no races are exactly the same, you still can generally still muscle memory your way through it in any way. And people already complain enough about how there are factors on this track that are out of your control, and throwing random banana spots into this is kind of an unreasonable request. Okay, not unreasonable. I feel like that sounds terrible coming out of my mouth. So let me elaborate further. There's not really any other track that has this sort of randomness to it, right? Like I think it's fair to say that pretty much every single track in Mario Kart 8, I can't think of a single track that has a full-on RNG element like this. So I feel like this isn't exactly a good faith argument.
Wise adds to the aesthetic, but gameplay wise it doesn't really do anything too interesting. And then you get
Sure.
this next section with the glider ramp bamboo shoes. Now credit to Ninja Hideaway.
And I just want to point this out. Do these Shy Guys do anything bad to the aesthetics? No. And I don't think they have to.
But the bamboo shoes blowing out allow you to take the higher path should you so desire, with the architecture making the top path a little harder to reach than you might like. And then you got to the final section, which pause. Do you remember what I said about the opening upper lane, lower lane section, where there's at least a bit of interesting dynamism going on? This last upper lane, lower lane section doesn't really have any of that. I can't think of any reason why I would take the top path or the bottom path in this final section. It's just kind of whichever one I end up in. And not to mention, neither path takes you to anywhere quite that interesting, if that makes sense. It's not like...
Let's see. Regular path, open air, few turns. Think of it. No two down bumps.
Yoshi Circuit tunnel thing where at least you got like a bit of a...
This is a terrible example you're bringing up, because the Yoshi Circuit tunnel shortcut, like, yes, there's a double box here, but this path is slower. I'm sorry to break it to you this way, but you've been deceived, and it's a cool idea, but here's the kicker, is that I think that your examples here work in contrast to what you're saying. There's no reason to go into the double dash tunnel shortcut because it's not faster, and yes, you can get a double box there, but what's a double box going to do for you? I feel like Double Dash is a game that emphasizes how well you can race, even though items are chaotic. On a track like Yoshi Circuit, you need every bit of advantage you can get, and going out of your way to the tunnel shortcut's not going to be it's not going to get you anywhere.
Different environment. You're kind of just taking the top lane or the bottom lane, and that's kind of it. It's not a section I'm particularly excited to play or excited to wait for. Think about the ending section of like Toad's Factory, for example. Yeah, I want to play this section. I'm excited. I love Toad's Factory. Sure, the bottom path has more trick opportunities, so technically it might be faster, but considering this whole stage's gimmick is adding platforming elements to Mario Kart, I was hoping for the platforming in question to have a bit more substance to...
Let me break this down for you, Sir Musty. Let me see if I can possibly sway you back a little bit more. So, from this angle, so Sir Musty, if I could speak on behalf of talking about the advantages of both of these paths, this bottom path, yes, you were completely onto the right track here. You can get more mini turbos here, but it's also slightly harder for beginner players because of the fact that you're also contending with turns where you have to choose between drifting and tricking, and as a result of that, new players do kind of struggle with that, but if they take the top route, it's a simplified version of it. You get more tricks on this bottom route, and this is the faster route for if you're just moving ahead. Similarly to what I said about the previous path, though, freeze frame right here. You see these two coins? These two coins are not there on the bottom path. You can get one coin by driving perfectly on the bottom path if you don't run into any problems. But outside of that, if you've ever done the 200cc ghost on this track, you will know that there is a massive gap jump shortcut by being on the top route right here and using a mushroom right here to take you all the way back to the finish line, which is really fucking cool, but sadly does not get to see much use because Nintendo decided that 200cc doesn't get to exist. In terms of what this track design actually offers, it offers a shortcut for 200cc and it offers a slower but more coin secure beginner friendly route on 150cc. So, there's still reason for it to exist. Is it as genius of a track design split as earlier? Not exactly. It's not perfect, and I feel like there's nothing wrong with this section being a sort of cool down after everything else. This isn't the most thrilling part of the track, but it doesn't necessarily need to. This part's for the excite bike enjoyers, you know? But unlike here, you're doing more than just tricking in a straight line. You're also throwing in a lot of twists and turns and curves, all of which at the same time as you're doing these drifts, which is not an easy feat. And as a result of that, I think there's very notable complexity here, and I literally have a clip of me losing a race because I missed one mini turbo on one of these jumps.
No, I spammed it! Wait, what happened? No! I missed one mini turbo and that made the difference.
All of that said, I understand if it's not the most thrilling section, and you're valid for that.
For a track to rank so highly, it's got to do a bit more for me. And even though I think this is what, B, maybe pushing A tier at best, I can definitely see why people rank this as highly as they do. And if you'll allow me to go game theory mode, I mean, take a place like Japan, a country so far away from any of us Westerners that it almost has this otherworldly vibe. Take an element from that culture that's been perfectly crafted to appeal to Western young boys, like ninja. You have a ninja thing that was in your childhood that you liked as a kid. We all had a phase.
But where are you going with
this?
this?
And don't you forget it, you had a phase. Put this culturally Japanese ninja theming aesthetic in a track that has a design concept that's never been recognized before. It clicks all of those synapses back together again.
Yes.
Oh, Chic, also Chic counts as well for the women.
Okay, go, finish your point.
I think ninjas and the path choice making upper lane, lower lane route of track design was a perfect fit. And while I think Ninja Hideaway does it well, I think it's something that can be recognized in future tracks. This track is basically the path choice making version of Hyrule Circuit. Does Hyrule Circuit really blow out of the park crossover-wise? I don't think so. It sets the standard for crossovers very well, and I can't wait to see this concept recognized further. And Ninja Hideaway does that for the whole path choice, upper lane, lower lane track design. A good opening gambit. I can't wait to see this recognized further in Mario Kart 9.
Hi, Editing TJ here. I have returned yet again because Sir Musty here makes a point that I don't even get the chance to react to because he then jump scared me with something that would draw my aggro even more. But before we get into that, why don't we talk about what he says to wrap up his point here? Because what he says is Ninja Hideaway is kind of the grandstanding first unveiling of this idea of doing multiple routes where there's an upper route and a lower route, to which I would respond, brother in Christ, have we been playing the same game? Because in Mario Kart 8, this idea has been explored to hell and back. And most of the time, it has no reason to even exist. This is the case on Sweet Sweet Canyon. This is the case on Electrodrome. This is the case on Super Bell Subway. This is the case on Yoshi Valley. This is the case on Bone Dry Dunes, one of my all-time favorite tracks. This is the case on Grumble Volcano. All of these are tracks that explore the idea of having different routes for you to take and having different reasons to take them. But the difference is that while all of these tracks, in some way or another, struggle to make them both matter on the same scale of importance, Ninja Hideaway, every single route has a reason to exist. And to contrast, this is not the grandstanding first showing of this idea of two routes where both of them have different reasons and incentives to take them. This is the perfection of that idea. The 10 out of 10, no notes, execution of it. And if you don't think that's deserving of one of the most well-designed tracks in all of Mario Kart, then I have nothing more to say to you. It's sure as a hell a lot better than Accelerated Toilet over there, where it's like, wow, look at all these routes that are so obviously to the side of the path you're supposed to take and are just genuinely slower if you do anything but just drive it the way you would expect to. No. All of these have a reason to exist. And to say that this is my first Mario Kart track design philosophy is absolutely discrediting every single aspect that went into the design of this genius track.
I think I'm going to do Grumble Volcano because I finally figured out why I don't like that track, and I'm going to convince all of you.
Oh, and you'll hear from me then. You will hear from me then, my man. It feels like you are here to target me and me specifically, but we'll get to that. So that's the video. I don't think I really agree that he made any arguments about why it doesn't deserve to live up to what it does. He doesn't really touch on why anything is designed poorly or why anything about... He just kind of says, like, yeah, people love these things about it, but I don't think they really matter that much or that they're executed that well. And, well, I don't really feel like I got much of a grasp on what flaws you see with it. Spent like 2 full minutes talking about being a child and growing up, like, loving ninjas and all that. But then you didn't have a point to why you were spending all that time talking about this subject. You used that to talk about, like, yeah, and when you're thinking about that kind of thing as a child, you want to be racing on rooftops like a true ninja or something. And then you kind of leave it there and don't explore that any further. What more does Ninja Hideaway do that you would like? What could it do better? Because I feel like what I see here is you saying, yeah, all these things are good, I just don't really like them. And you don't really talk about why any of these things make it, like, slightly below average. You say that it sets a good stage for the idea of doing that. I say that it is the standout example of probably the only track that I like the way multiple routes are designed in Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. Maybe that's a bit extreme. Maybe I don't think it's quite necessarily that extreme of a stance I have, but it is so much better than every other, and every other route feels like it has a reason to exist. And because of that, I feel like you didn't exactly explore the full depth of this topic like I would like to see you do. That said, I appreciate the video, Sir Musty. You still have some of the better Mario Kart opinions I see on the internet, because it's clear you approach this from a similar level of passion that I do. I would still beat your ass in a 1v1 though.